You know what? I always considered a barber an artist. Only a barber paints with his clippers. Like painting, cutting hair takes time, patience. The smallest little detail matters. But you know what? Maybe a barber is more than an artist. Now that you learned about his upbringing and know how he started cutting hair, it's time for you to know how his faith in God brought him to Russellville and inspired the community.
I can remember going to church a few times. Mom, as I said, she was working, these jobs. They really don't care about whether you go to church or not. Uh, all they're concerned about is their business. So I can remember going to church a couple of times with a neighbor. I can remember going with my sister Genova. And, uh, I stopped going to church at a very young age, and probably didn't. I didn't go back to church until I was like 27 years old. People used to come up to me when I was in the military and invite me, to come out to the church, and I would tell them, well, I would accept the offer, and really had no intent, on going. But I didn't want to, tell the people no, and so once I did get out, and I moved back home, uh, I have nephews and nieces, and they didn't have an introduction into who God was. So I thought that they needed someone to at least introduce them, to God. And so that's what started me to going to church, is I wanted to introduce my nephews and nieces and my children, to God. And well, the more that I went in and tried to teach them, the greater the desire, to know God for myself, the greater that desire became.
That desire to know God changed him and his family's life forever and put him on a different path.
So as I pressed in and wanted to do it wholeheartedly, uh, God, I guess He honored that, and He began to draw me, even more. He began to open my ears, and until one day I was working, thinking everything going good, and He told me to take my family and leave Helena and don't look back. And that was something that when I heard it, I immediately in my mind, I got to look for somewhere to go. And I mentioned it to my wife, and she didn't want to go nowhere. She had never been, lived anywhere else. We had just added on to the house, 880 square feet. Hadn't even stayed in the room yet. Everything was just going good, so we thought. Everything was great, so we thought. Got to the point to where, we were at odds with one another, because I knew I had to go. Like I said, we were at odds, and I even told her, well, you can stay, but me and my children, we got to go. And I prayed about it because I didn't want to be wrong, and so Lord, I said, if this was you, show me it was you, because I don't want to be wrong. And
appreciate you, bro. That made good for you.
Probably a few weeks after that, well, let me back up. The wife, we came back and forth to Russellville looking and other places. And one week she called me and she was like, well, are we going to Russellville today? And in my mind, I'm thinking it was rubbing off on her. And not knowing that in her mind, that if we went up here, came up to Russellville and didn't find anything, she wasn't going. That's what was in her mind. And so we got up here and we went to Cliff Gooden and got the listing of properties that were for rent. And I had said in my mind that I wasn't going to pay outside of a certain amount of money. Well, God had different plans. So the list that I had got from Cliff Gooden, it had a house on there that was outside the range that I wanted to pay. So I threw that sheet in the floor. I mean, it was of no value to me. So we, the whole weekend, searching for a place. And I could see the disgust on my wife's face. And before we was getting ready to leave, and before we left, I heard this voice. So I picked that paper up. So I picked the paper up on the floor, and we go and we look at this house that's on this paper, and this one, she was comfortable with. Now everything else, you know what I'm saying, she was not comfortable with, but this one she was comfortable with it. And well, I even offered the lady, the realtor at that moment, I had a little money in my pocket, so I offered her several months of rent, and she told me that she couldn't do it because there was a process that she had to go through. And at that moment I thought, well, I'm not gonna get it. So we get back home, and I'm cutting somebody's hair. And this guy, not knowing that I was even planning on moving, this was a guy that came probably once every 6 months. And he got up out the chair. He said, God told me to tell you something. He said, he loves you like the lilies of the field. He said, be encouraged. This is just the beginning. Don't look back. And when he said that, man, I just stuck my hand out and shook his hand. I said, I needed that. You know, this was confirmation, you know, for me. So I told the wife about it. And it comforted her because she was now willing. And when I first told her, she said confirmation. So, like, right a couple of days after, I'm telling one of my clients what this guy said. And then the lady, the realtor from here, she called me on the phone and she said, you still interested in the property here in Russellville? I said, yes, ma'am. When do I need to be there? You don't have to be here till the first of the month. I'll be there this weekend. So I came that weekend and paid the deposit and, you know, first month's rent or whatever. And that's, you know, how we end up here.
Since his arrival in Russellville, he has really shaped people's lives in the community.
Mr. Tommy Boyce, he's been my barber for pretty much my whole life since I was like 4 or 5 years old. Always been a great dude, Christian guy, you know, always giving us real good lessons whenever we went into the shop. That's an experience that I didn't get at any other barber. Like, I went to other barbers a couple of times in my city, but Tommy was always the one to like uplift us, like we're going through something. Because basically in my city we had crime issues and stuff like this. So when we were going through stuff and we had like, you know, people that were our age, you know, situations where they would be hurt or, you know, shot, killed or anything, he was the one to always give us like a inspirational quote or give us a verse from the Bible, let us know, hey, it's gonna be all right, don't think this way about this situation. So I always looked up to Tommy as like a more of a mentor.
Tommy, a big homie, man. He's very wise. Man, any kind of advice you need, man, you can talk to him about anything. Smart. He's been around the block. He knows a lot. He's right with God. He can just talk to you in a way that can really hit you, and you can feel it. Feel like you really got something good out of it.
Well, my dad is very hardworking and he's talented, and I would say he's a mentor for all. Like, he tries to help anybody he can, and he's very religious, but at home he's very strict. So, but I love him despite. But yeah, he's a great person. He is.
Spiritually, you know, a whole lot of things, you know, through this community, through relationships that I built through the community, it has helped me grow, you know, spiritually as well. I think as far as what we've done for the community, we've given people an outlet. People, whether they want to vent, whether they want to come and just hang out, socialize, whether they want counsel or advice, whether they just want a haircut, and whether they want to feel good about themselves. I think, we offer all that, to the people.